They called me the quiet man in the flat cap. I never shouted, I never bragged. I let my teams do the talking. And over 9 years they said plenty. 6 league titles, 3 European Cups. No English manager before me had ever lifted that trophy, and no British manager has ever lifted it 3 times since. From Wembley to Rome, from Manchester to Madrid, my Liverpool was the team nobody could touch. Before continuing, make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos, and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. I coached geniuses, Scots who conquered Europe, a Welsh boy who became the deadliest finisher these islands ever produced, defenders so elegant they made the impossible look like a stroll. But if you put me in a chair and asked me, out of every player I ever worked with, for just 5 names, 5 men who mattered most, I could do it. Some of these choices will surprise you. One nearly walked out on me. Stay with me. This is my list. Kenny Dalglish. If I could keep only one, it would be him. Here's the surprise. I signed Kenny to replace a god. Kevin Keegan had just left for Hamburg, and the cop was heartbroken. Every man on Merseyside was asking how we'd fill that hole. I booked into a Scottish hotel under a false name so nobody would catch wind of it, and I paid Celtic £440,000, a British record, for a 26-year-old they said could never replace Keegan. I drove him down to Anfield myself. He told the papers, this really was the offer I could not refuse. 7 minutes into his league debut, he scored. On his first appearance at Anfield, he scored again. Any fears died right there. But the moment I'll carry forever was Wembley, 1978, the European Cup final against Bruges. The ball came to Kenny, and instead of blasting it, he dinked it, gentle as you like, over the keeper. 1-0, champions again. I once said it plain. My plea was answered when we got Kenny Dalglish. What a player, what a great professional. He read the game like nobody I ever knew, and he was only the beginning. Because within 12 months, I brought 2 more Scots south. One of them nobody expected. Everyone assumed my second name would be an attacker, a goal scorer, somebody who filled the net. It's a defender. Alan Hansen. Here's why this choice is different. I paid just £110,000 for him. Daylight robbery. The best value of any signing I ever made. Partick Thistle in Scotland, recommended to me by Jock Stein himself. He almost quit football to turn professional golfer. He was that gifted an all-round sportsman. Behind the scenes, plenty doubted him. My own scouts filed cautious reports, questions about his pace, whether he'd cope with quicker forwards. But what made Hansen unique was this. He never needed pace because he was always early. He didn't win tackles. He removed the need for them. A centre-half who carried the ball out of defense with the grace of a midfielder in an era when defenders were told to just hammer it clear. The numbers only confirm it. In 1978-79, my side conceded just 16 goals in 42 league games. Hansen played 34 of them. I said it once and meant it. He was the most skillful centre-half I ever saw in the British game. That's why he's on my list. And the next man, he was the engine that drove everything. Some players you manage. Graeme Souness you unleashed. What made him special was that he was 2 players in one, the silk and the steel. He could stroke a pass across 60 yards onto a coin, then win it back with a tackle that made grown men think twice. I paid Middlesbrough £352,000 for him in January 1978, and I never spent money more wisely. Here's the curious thing about Souness. He had the arrogance you can't teach. A swagger. Off the pitch, immaculate. Mustache, sharp clothes, a taste for the finer life that earned him the nickname Champagne Charlie. Some managers would have tried to tame that. I didn't. I let him be exactly who he was, because that same certainty is what made him fearless when the game was on the line. He captained us to European Cup glory. He drove that midfield with menace and intelligence in equal measure. When Souness walked onto the pitch, the whole team stood taller. His importance was simple. He set the temperature of the side. That's a legacy few players ever leave. And now, the one who changed matches all on his own. Goals. That's what this one is about. Ian Rush scored 346 of them, more than any man in Liverpool's history. He came to me from Chester in 1980, a shy 19-year-old, and I paid £300,000, the most anyone had ever spent on a teenager anywhere in the world. Everton wanted him too, but they wouldn't meet the fee. Their loss became the greatest bargain of the decade. Here's how he evolved, and it's my proudest bit of man management. In his first full season, Rush sulked. He knocked on my door and demanded a transfer because he wasn't in the team. So I told him the truth. You're not in the team because you're not selfish enough. If you'd been scoring goals, you'd be in the side. I told him he could go on the transfer list. I never meant to sell him. It was a trick, a bit of brinksmanship to light a fire under him. As he stormed out, he said, "I'll show you I can score goals." And he did. 5 in his first 4 reserve games, then 30 the next season, then the 4 he battered past Everton at Goodison that the cops still sing about. I admired him because he took a hard word and turned it into greatness. His impact was historic, and he's on this list forever. I've saved the hardest story for last, because it began with a conflict, and it's the one closest to my heart. Come back to that same young Ian Rush, but see him properly now. When he first arrived, he was lost, homesick, painfully shy. He hated how Dalglish and the senior lads wound up the young ones in the dressing room. 9 games in his debut season and not a single goal. A boy raised an Everton fan, drowning at the biggest club in Europe, quietly certain he didn't belong. The evolution was everything. That showdown in my office wasn't cruelty. It was the only key that fit the lock. I saw a finisher trapped inside a frightened kid, and I knew the only way out was to make him angry enough to prove me wrong. Then came the decisive moments. Italy came calling. Napoli, who'd just signed Maradona, wanted Rush beside him. Juventus eventually took him, but he came home because Anfield had become his home. He earned my respect not by being the loudest, but by absorbing hard truth and answering with goals. That's why, of everyone, his is the story I tell. As I always said, I let my players do the talking. Ian Rush spoke in goals, and he never stopped. So there they are. 5 names, 5 men who carried my Liverpool to the top of Europe and never let it slip. Kenny Dalglish, the genius I gambled a British record on to replace a god, and who repaid every penny with that dinked finish at Wembley and a footballing brain I've never seen matched. Alan Hansen, the elegant bargain nobody saw coming, stolen from Partick Thistle for pennies, a centre-half so composed he made defending look like a stroll in the park. Graeme Souness, the silk and the steel, the swaggering heartbeat of my midfield, who set the temperature of the whole side and feared no one alive. Ian Rush, the shy Welsh boy who became the deadliest finisher these islands ever produced, 346 goals and still climbing in the memory of every copite. And Rush once more, the frightened kid I had to wound before he could fly. Because some players earn 2 places on an old man's heart. Each one marked my career in a completely different way. One I chased under a false name in a Scottish hotel. One I signed on a scout's quiet conviction. One I let run wild because taming him would have broken the magic. One I made angry on purpose, just to light the fire I knew was buried inside him. That was my craft. Not shouting, not showing off. Just knowing men, and knowing when to push and when to leave well alone. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these choices surprised you the most? Tell me down in the comments. I read every single one. If this story stirred something in you, drop a like so more people find their way to it, and subscribe, because next time I'm pulling back the curtain on the day I called my perfect day, Rome, 1977, the night we conquered Europe for the very first time. Until then, you'll never walk alone.